What's up guys, Justin Russell, Brett Moore here from Russell Marine Products. Today we're going to bring you a new video on 5 tips of using your Lowrance electronics to help you put more fish in the boat.
Okay guys, here is tip number 1, and we're going to talk about mapping and the depth shadings that we can do with our Contour Plus card on our Lowrance unit. So as we can see here, this is our preset blue colors. This is what the lake looks like. Got 1-foot contour lines. Looks good. We've got a lot of contour lines, but what we're going to focus in on is our depth shadings so that we can go through different ranges of depths and color them how we want to. So we're going to show you how to do that here on our unit. When we go over here to chart options, we're going to come down here to our shading, and it gives you 2 presets, so a depth 1 and a depth 2. Those are our 2 that we can go in and adjust. So we're going to jump right into that. We're going to hit our custom and our depth 1 right here. So this is our 1 preset that we're going to look at, and what we do is we can add or delete points here. So our first point starts off from 0 to, we're going to go with 5 foot, and we're going to go in 5-foot increments, and then we're going to color each one. So we've got 0 to 5 foot here, and we're going to make this color yellow. Hit OK. Go down to our second point, and now we've got 5 foot to 10 foot, and we've got our color set here. Next point we have from 10 to 15. Again, we can see right here our 15 foot. We're going to change that color over to red. Our fourth point is 15 foot to 20. And we're going to add a couple of more points here. So we're going to 20 foot to 25, keeping in our 5-foot increments. And we're going to add one more point, so 25 to 30-foot range here. We're going to make that blue. So now let's look at, here's our map. Now we're going to turn on our depth 1, the one that we just preset. And we can see how everything brings in our colors. And we've got a lot of color options here on our map. But when we focus in on this, we can really see how this depth changes. So we know that our 0 to 5 foot was that yellow color. So we can really see, here's the bank. You know, we're off 5 foot, that's that yellow. The nice thing about this card is as you get used to the colors that you want to see, it will blend those in. So we go from 5 all the way out here to 10 foot, and that orange color goes from a bright yellow then to a darker orange. And as we see here, our next one was red. It comes out from a dark orange down to bright red. So this is how we can really focus in on where we're catching fish for the day. Again, you can go in and change these very easily. If we don't like something, a depth or a color that you have, we can easily go in and change that. So we don't like this blue. It's not popping to our eye. Let's change it to white. Go back to our map, and now we can see that it has changed. Our deep water, 30 foot and out, is all going to be white. And we can see now that creek channel really pops. We can see where the river is. We can see where that channel is all the way down the lake. It really pops. What that does is helps us see our depth. And when we focus in, we're catching 10 to 15 foot. That's where we're catching our fish. We know as we go around the lake, any points that we're looking at, anywhere on the lake, we're looking for that red color. That's what we're going to focus in on. Now our whole lake is shaded this way, so it's going to make our time on the water more efficient to catch a fish that we want to in that depth range. The other options we have When we go back to custom, when we go over here to our depth 2, remember our second preset, now you can set that for a different range of depths. So if you want to do bigger ranges, not 5 foot, you want to do 10-foot increments, you can do that on depth 2. If you set that up, we can easily turn depth 1 on, or off, I'm sorry, and turn depth 2 on. So that's how we can use our depth shading with our Contour Plus map on our Lowrance unit to catch more fish. Okay, tip number 2, we're going to talk about frequency with our side scan. We've got 2 options, 455 and 800. 455 is what I'm going to use when I'm searching. That gets us a wider range. We can see farther out, less detail. When I find a structure that I want to investigate, I'm going to go 800. Our range is not as great. It comes in, but our detail is much better. That's how we can investigate with our 455 and 800 and find structure and really pinpoint what we want to fish.
All right, guys, tip number 3 I want to go over here. It's actually kind of like a 2-part tip. So I've got a hump here on our screen on our chart I want to bring up here, and you can see here where there's a ledge or where it gets really steep on here. So I'm going to mark that. I'm actually going to hit a waypoint with that right there. We're going to save that here. But now here's the real important thing. If you look over here, you can see how the boat's not facing our waypoint. I'm going to go here to our settings. I'm going to go to chart. I'm going to go heading extension. Make sure it's heading extension, not course extension. And you can see this blue line that comes right out of the bow of the boat. Now, the interesting thing is, now whenever the boat rotates around, I can see when I'm perfectly aimed at that waypoint. So obviously the boat's slowly rotating and rotating away from that. So what we're going to do is actually fire the engine up and rotate towards that so we can see to be most efficient with our cast. And you can see the heading extension is rotating along with the boat as it's rotating. It just helps us be able to line up our cast, so that way you can try to hit your target the first time. It's still coming up around here. See if I won't overshoot it. Now this is an underwater hump, so this is not something you're going to necessarily see. We got muddy water here in El Dorado, so it's not like you're going to be able to see the high spot or the low spots here. And we are lined up right now with that thing, so zoom out there and perfect. You can see where we're at. This will help you line up your casts. That is tip number 3. All right, now on to tip number 4. We're going to show you how to calculate your distance to waypoint so you know how far to pull up on your waypoint before you drop the trolling motor down and start making casts. Now here on tip number 4, one thing that I really wanted to focus on was distance to waypoint. So we've got our boat here, we've got our heading extension out. You can see we've got waypoint 246 right there. If I push on that waypoint, it will bring up how many feet away from that waypoint we are. So we're getting closer to it as we're drifting in, 107, 106. I know when I'm at my console, I want to stop idling in about 100 feet away. This is the point where I would go jump up front. We have both units networked here, so I can jump up on the bow on the trolling motor. I can do the exact same thing. Push that waypoint. I will then know how far away the bow unit is away from that waypoint. I personally, depending on how I'm fishing, I want to be about 55, 60 feet away from that when I start fishing that specific waypoint. So as you can see, our heading is turning down here. We're actually turning away. I'm going to fire the engine up and re-aim us back towards that waypoint. You can see we're getting closer to our waypoint there. Now we're directly lined up with our waypoint right now. So if I was on the bow of the boat, I know which direction to cast, I know which direction that waypoint is, and I know how far away from that waypoint I am at all times. This way you can kind of either work yourself up to the waypoint, or if you're fishing a crankbait and need to cast a lot further back from that waypoint and bring your bait through that area, you'll know how far to be. All right guys, our 5th and final tip here is going to show you how to set up waypoints on side imaging so that you can see how everything is laid out over your mapping. So what we're going to do here is we're going to idle pass a piece of structure. We're going to set multiple waypoints on that structure of how I would set it up. But basically the key coming into that is, most importantly, at least for me, is to see how that piece of structure is laid out over my mapping. So when we go back around, use our heading extension, using our mapping and 2D sonar of how to mark everything to fish it, we're going to be able to do it at an efficient ability with how everything's laid out on our mapping with our waypoint structure. So we're going to fire the engine up, idle pass this piece of structure here, set out some waypoints so so we can turn back around and fish it. All right, we're coming up on a piece of structure here, and what I want to showcase is an old fence row we're coming up on right here. So I'm going to start marking this thing. Hit new waypoint, save. New waypoint, save. Clear our cursor, let it advance. New waypoint, save that. We're going to mark all these right here. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to see how this thing is laid out. You can see our structure makes a pretty hard turn, basically a 90-degree turn right there. You can see our waypoints are kind of following down. So now what we can do is go spin around, go back to our chart here, let our waypoints load up. All right, as you can see, we're on our map here, and we've gone back, and there's all our waypoints that we painted from the structure. So saving those waypoints now, you can actually see that L-shaped configuration. And as our last tip that we did, you can point on there, see how far away we are from those waypoints, and then go back and fish so we can hit directly where it makes that hard 90. Or we can come out here and fish the edge where it starts to run up the bank. If we actually scroll over, you can see where that old fence row comes clean off the bank. It makes a hard 90 into some deeper water right there. All right, guys, as you can see here, this is our top 5 tips for Lowrance to help you be more efficient on the water and hopefully put more fish in the boat. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the water next time.